has changed the interface. So I'm always a little like, not quite sure, but I do believe we're live. Hello, Kristen. Kristen, yes? Achziger. What a great name. I've probably completely botched that, but that's beautiful. Wonderful. Where are you calling in from, or where are you watching from, Kristen? Both Jamie and I are in Toronto. Funny enough, we are like
blocks away from each other.
Blocks away from each other. I still think that is fascinating to me. Like, so when I first started out the coaching industry, I had a couple of people I really looked up to, and Jamie Ridler was one, and blocks away. Mojave, oh my gosh, California, teeny tiny desert town. Oh my gosh, sounds really beautiful. I know you actually were so close with my name. Okay, now I'm such a perfectionist. I actually want to know exactly how to say it. You'll have to send me an audio file, Kristen. So happy that you're here. Whoever else is here, let us know where you are watching from. Achziger. Oh,
like Tigger.
That's awesome. Achziger. Woo! Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, so we're gonna go live we're gonna go live with Facebook in about a minute. Welcome all. Thank you for being here. Please go ahead and use the Ask a Question feature, or just like Kristen's doing, use the chat. Let us know where you're here from, and any questions you have for the exquisite Jamie Ridler.
Thank you.
Welcome all to In the Spotlight Live with Tanya Geisler. I am Tanya Geisler, and this show is all about shining a spotlight on some of the leaders and entrepreneurs and creatives who I think are really doing remarkable things in the world, and talking about some of the mindset challenges that they maybe had to overcome to be emboldened to make a start. If you are watching us from Facebook, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you have questions, though, we're not going to be able to see them. So come on over to Crowdcast, ask your questions here, be part of the chat. And if you're watching from Crowdcast, feel free, please, to share this. There's a share button near the bottom there somewhere. Again, they've changed the interface on me. And please do ask any questions you have. Jamie and I love nothing more than to be as generous as we possibly can with what we know. And we'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you're listening to this far after the fact as part of the podcast, because that's new and exciting for me, welcome. And please consider subscribing so you get all upcoming episodes. All of that to say, welcome one, welcome all. I'm so excited that you're here with me, and co-star Jamie Ridler. I almost feel like I want to say Jamie effing Ridler, you know, like Jamie Ridler. And among other things, Jamie is a dear friend, my Wednesday morning co-working partner, the world problems we have solved over my dining room table, you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And podcasting pioneer, among so many other things. Creative Living with Jamie Ridler has been around since August 31st. Can't do the math. 2009?
I think that's right.
8 years?
8 years.
What? 8 years. 8 years. Amazing. So welcome, Jamie. Hi, Shannon. Hi, D-Chan. Thank you for being here. Jamie, hi.
Hi. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so excited. I got to just give a little props to Shannon. She's the editor of my podcast. Hey, Shannon. And thanks everybody for joining us. I am so excited. And, you know, when Tanya was saying there's nothing we love more than being generous, she really means it. I whatever I know, I like to share. And so if you've got questions, don't hesitate. If I know it, if I got something, I'm giving it.
Yes, she does. Every Wednesday morning, I'm telling you. So In the Spotlight Live started as an experiment in fun for me. I was feeling a little bit in a rut and knew that I needed to inject a little fun in the way I was doing some of my work. And I love connecting. I love delicious conversations. I love conversations about the imposter complex. So I started in the Spotlight, and about 10, 11 interviews in, it just whispered in my ear, this is a show, but it's also a podcast. And I went, what? And for all the work in the world that I do with the imposter complex, I recognized exactly what it was going on. Immediately, you have nothing useful to say. It's all been done before. What do you know about running a podcast? What do you know about any of this stuff? That's just a silly little, fill in the blanks.
Right.
So I have 3 specific strategies that I always come back to whenever I know that I am nose to nose with the imposter complex. And that is, I need to challenge my inner beliefs. I need to meet the critics. I know that I need to bolster my authority thesis, remind myself of my capacity, and I know that I need to gather my people. So the moment I knew this was a podcast, there was no doubt in my mind that I needed to bring in the one, the only Jamie Ridler. And so that's what I did, and that's what we're talking about what we're talking about today is really starting something that is meaningful and important to you and all of the stuff that comes up in and around it. So what do you know about starting, Jamie?
Oh my gosh. So starting's like my favorite. Shannon pointed out to me the other day how often I say, I have a crazy idea. And for me, the podcast started like that. It was sort of like, I have this crazy idea. And Tanya, I didn't know how to do anything. When I decided I was going to have a podcast, I didn't know how I was going to record it. I didn't know how I was going to ask anybody. I didn't know how to edit it. I didn't know that you needed to host it. Like I knew nada. And when you were listing your strategies, I thought, what was my strategy for getting over I have a crazy idea. I have no idea how to do it. So what got me to the other side? And for me, it was this two deep desires. Like I felt this call, this need, this something that wasn't out there in the world. Because at the time, it was podcasts, nobody was talking about them. And it was still really relatively early days in blogging. And I looked around the blog sphere at all these women that we all adored, that inspired us every day. And I thought, but we don't know, I don't know what their voice sounds like. And that was where I started. Oh. There was this desire. I felt like we all needed to hear each other's voices. And then the other thing that always gets me over the hump when I'm starting something new that is a service, an offer, a business kind of thing, something that's going to have an impact on somebody else, is thinking of the person it's going to impact. So if I'm scared, then maybe I don't want to start coaching. If I'm scared, maybe I don't want to start my podcast. But when I think about, oh my gosh, I know, like I was, that there are women who are going to work today and crying in the cubicle because they ache for a creative life and they don't know how to start, or they are just dying for some inspiration. And I sit there and think, well, I could be scared. I could listen to that inner critic that says, who am I to? Or I could do something. And just really for me, connecting to that person who this could sincerely have an impact on, that this could sincerely make them feel like they're not alone. Well, then I am going to do it. I'm going to get over needing to be perfect. I'm going to get over needing to figure it out. I'm going to get over being afraid, and I'm going to show up. That's how I do it.
This is one of the things that I sincerely love about you. And I've got a crazy idea. I've got a crazy idea. And then here's what you do. You go, I've got this crazy idea. And then, hey, everybody, here's my crazy idea. I love that, right?
Hey, everybody is always my next step. Hey,
everybody. Crazy idea. Hey, everybody. That hey, everybody is brave too. Like, just let that be known. That is deeply brave. I love that I've got a crazy idea because it reminds me of one of your core values. It is that sense of adventure, that newness. And that's why that pioneer, because I wasn't sure. I've been calling you that for I don't know how long. Pioneer of blogging, same thing. You were really I didn't want to call it an early adopter. It was like an early user, an early contributor to the blogging community. And I was thinking about that also in the context of, you looked around and the need hadn't been met. Oh, and by the way, for anybody following along, when she talks about some of the women whose voices we hadn't heard, she's talking Brene Brown, she's talking Julie Cameron, so that's another piece to this
yes.
too. You've made some huge asks, or some beautiful asks of some really huge names. So there's two places I'm kind of interested in going right now. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go with the asks, or do you want to go with the new trailblazing kind of experience? You just pick the direction.
Well, let's talk about the asks, because I think that that's something that people hear who might be wanting to start a podcast. I think that's a point of tension, that's a point of nervousness too. So how do we get brave around making an ask? And so I do have some strategies for that too. One is I like to think of it. Okay, first of all, let me say that my strongest strategy against the imposter complex, is going to sound so corny, but it's the truth, is a pure heart. And so for me, when I am making an ask, I sincerely try to think of it as an offer, not an ask. I try to ensure that I am in very clear integrity about what I am offering. So, if somebody says, like at the beginning, if I don't even know if anyone's listening, I'm not going to write to Julia Cameron and say, I'm going to offer you exposure. That's just not very sincere. I hope one day that would be true, but in that moment it wasn't. So I might talk about that we are really connected in what's important to us, and we'll have a conversation that's really real and meaningful. I might reach out on the level of, I wanted her voice. Like, I've read all her writings, and I know all my friends have, but we haven't heard her voice, and I hope this is a chance. So I try to make it sincere. I also always look for what can I offer? Oh my goodness. This is just top tip 101. Time your offers around something that the person you're asking for wants to share. Do they have a new book, a new documentary, a new single they're releasing? That's the time to ask. Be sensitive to what they need and be honest about what you can offer. And then the big secret is just do it. Be sincere, be polite. Don't please. I get so many people asking to be on my podcast, and nothing stops me from listening faster than the slick, hey, Jamie, I'm a big fan of your podcast. And, and nothing that would indicate that is actually true. Then right. This explanation about how they have this new sales app that will really help my audience. I'm like, then you really have, so know who you're talking to. It's all building a relationship. So just treat it like you're going to meet somebody you really admire, tell them that, come from that sincere place, offer what you sincerely have to offer, and see what happens. And also, if you don't hear back, don't take that as a no forever. Don't take it as a rejection of you. We all know we're busy. Do you answer all of your emails? Probably not. And so somebody who is really busy and responding to these requests all the time may not get back to you. Try again in 6 months. Wait for the next thing that they're about to launch. Ask again. Just keep outreaching and think of it as a relationship, and check in with your integrity. And I think our inner critics hit us hardest when we are not on stable ground. So having a pure heart and being in integrity makes you feel on stable ground.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. So beautiful. Beautiful. Good. I've not heard that or explored that, the purity of heart as it relates to the imposter complex. I think about that in the context of the asks and making sure that they're reasonable and specific and respectful and reciprocal too. I think there's something there too. I always think about this in the context, and you and I have had many conversations about Board of Your Life. And one of the biggest things that people, the biggest challenges they face when they want to step into the Board of Your Life experience is, if I ask people, will they say no? And I think that one thing we have to be aware that we have to be true that we would be able to offer the same person the very same thing if they were to ask us in reverse, right? So I think that idea of reciprocity as a potential is also I think it's important too, somehow.
So I can see how that might trigger us if we feel like, oh my gosh, I want to ask somebody who has an audience of millions to be on my podcast that has an audience of 7. And so one, we might not be ready. We might want to ask somebody who has an audience of 70 and then 700 and then 7,000. And we can build trust by being able to say, like, it's easier for me now to ask somebody because I can say, well, I've interviewed Brene Brown and Gretchen Rubin and, names that they'll recognize. And then they'll go, oh, well, if they said yes to Jamie, maybe I can trust her. So you have to work on building that trust. But where you can always, and this is so crucial, is we are all human beings and we are interested in having a meaningful conversation that matters. And so the reciprocity absolutely comes from, I am offering you respect, knowledge of your work, a willingness to be in open conversation, and a willingness to share, to be in this place of generating some wisdom and sharing it with the world. And on that, you and I are on the same mission. And I may just be starting and you may be farther along, but I promise too, and I do promise this sincerely, that when I am farther along, I will turn around and share too. And I do.
And you do. And I see it time and time and time again. And it's just such a huge part of who you are, how you show up so beautifully. How do we unhook from the pain of the no, which of course is always so much bigger that in our minds, So how have you unhooked from the fear of the no, and then when you have received a no, assuming it's respectful and whatever else, how have you unhooked from that?
I got to admit, sometimes this kind of thing is hard. I'm a sensitive soul. I am not the best at that advice of not taking it personally. Yeah. But it does tap into what I said earlier about sort of having this realistic view of people's lives and just knowing that we are busy, that it's not a reflection of me, just like how I behave to everybody else it's so wildly egotistical to think everything that I encounter is a reflection of me. And instead I just think, this is actually making me think of something really funny. I follow this woman on YouTube and she says whenever she gets someone thumbs down one of her videos, that she just assumes they pressed the wrong button. So in that spirit, I kind of just assume that it's not the right time. This person is busy. And sometimes I have this innate trust also in the universe that maybe it wasn't the right time for me to connect to this person. Maybe we weren't the best fit. This wasn't the best time. This wasn't the best format. I let it go. The truth is, when you look out in the world, Tanya, there's a reason my podcast has been going for 8 years. There is no dearth of phenomenal creative people to talk to. So I just move on and find the next person with whom that relationship is correct. So, and also too, in that reason, don't get too hung up on rock stars. You know what I mean? Right. Like, don't get your sight, like, there are many people with great wisdom. Don't feel like one person's no is your disaster, or a negative reflection on you. There is plenty of genius to show up for you.
Beautiful. And this is, we're talking specifically, but your experience with inviting people onto your podcast, this is true of pretty much any ask. And I think that our work compels us to make asks, no matter what it is that we're doing. And so just if anybody listening to this, just constrain that out into however it applies in your life, because we're constantly making asks, and we are required to. Our people want us to succeed. They want to lift us up, but we actually do have to ask. They're just not sitting around waiting to tap you in. They're just not. So all of these strategies, though, do make me think a lot about the person who would much rather just do it on their own, Jamie.
Sure.
Yeah. Fiercely independent, right? So this also comes up, but that's what I really love, because you have a great value very strong value of independence. So to come up with, to have the podcasting being such a huge part of who you are and how you show up and the way you share, it's really fascinating to me, because it does require you to be in partnership with somebody else, which of course you have shown time and time again you are brilliant at doing. But it does make me think about people that are like, yeah, that feels like an awful lot to me. So maybe I'll just start my blog or something that doesn't require me to have anybody partnering with me.
For sure. And even like podcasting, oh my gosh, like sometimes you do want to just do it by yourself, be on your own schedule, not worry about, all the logistics or whether someone else is going to say yes or say no. I have episodes of my show that are just me too. And I think there can be a gift in that. Now, in that way, sometimes I think the imposter complex can show up more there, because if I'm interviewing Julia Cameron, I'm pretty sure people are going to be interested. But if I'm talking about creativity and journaling and releasing all of your fears, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's a different story. Now I'm the expert. That for me, we're all different, but for me, that would bring up more of that took more time for me to build my legs underneath my own expertise, for sure.
And I hear already that what that has taken has been ding, 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 pure heart. D. Chan says that while I was in the hospital last week for heart surgery, so this rings true, I realized that this is a big part of my path, helping people just starting instead of those already on the path. Yeah, that's really beautiful. And
you and me, sister D. Chan, like for sure.
Mm-hmm. Jamie, you have me thinking about, I don't know why I keep calling this, like, I've got this very like Wild West kind of vision of blogging and podcasting 8-9 years ago. So this question has been roiling around most of today, and I do wonder what your thoughts are on, is it easier to start something like a blog or a podcast at the very beginning, at the very nascent stages of this new medium, or is it easier, but it's uncharted? There's no one doing it, or is it easier to start once quote unquote everyone else is doing it?
Right.
Now, so that's super loaded the way I've framed that. But what are your thoughts on that?
I love this question. I feel like they're sort of inversely easy and hard like this. So. On the frontiers, what is hard is tech. What is hard is figuring out how to do something. There are not a million tutorials on YouTube. Libsyn did not exist. That is just, you are guerrilla tactics. You are piecing things together. You are guessing and trying. And that is hard, especially I'm not a major tech person. So that was hard. But forging your own path in whatever ways make sense to you, as opposed to the way it's done, easier. Feeling like even if it's not perfect, it's awesome, easier, because there's not lots of perfect out there. These days, technically, there's podcasting coaches out there. There's podcasting classes. Once something's established, like blogging, there's blogging classes, there's blog tech, there's people who specialize in teaching you how to do that. But we're blogging and podcasting. I feel very strongly about this. They came from a sort of grassroots, equalizing the conversation place. Now, all of the big content publishers have suffered. Newspapers, magazines, television stations have suffered, and radio stations. And so instead, they reached down and started co-opting the world of blogging and podcasting. So suddenly, you little brand new blogger are blogging against, oh my God, Gretchen Rubin has her own podcast. Elizabeth Gilbert has her own Alanis Morissette has her own podcast. How will I ever be heard in that world? And it does sort of get a little, why, a little kind of reaction from me. And also too, I do think it's harder to find your own voice and trust your own voice, when now there is so clearly lifestyle blogging. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is how you write a good headline. So I think there's a lot of those challenges too.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. Like, even if there are best practices for you to be able to borrow from, I think it's really important. And I think a place of deep suffering for so many is thinking that this is the path. So we can still, I mean, theoretically, it feels like we can still take that spirit of adventure that comes with being in the front end and saying, here's how I want to do it. Here's the voice I want to have,
yes,
because it is my voice, and take the best practices that now exist, but then apply it, still allow it to be your own way. That's my very Pollyanna-esque belief, but that's what I continue to see where people are enjoying success, is where they're taking best practices of the forebearers of a movement and applying it, but bringing their own spirit, of course, and pure heart with them, right? I mean, that just feels like it's the only way.
I think that's the key. I think it's the key for my people. I think it's the key for your people. I'm sure everyone listening is, they're here doing the work they want to do because they want it to come from this place of integrity and heart and realness, and be related to who they actually are, not just slick, unless they're slick. Like, I'm all for being glamorous if glamorous is your thing. I'm all for being homespun if homespun's your thing. It also makes it so much more likely that you are going to be heard. And again, it is standing on that firm ground of integrity, because it's you doing you. You don't need to practice that. You need to practice, if anything, my background's in theater. If anything, you have to practice relieving all of the things that people expect, and the way to get back to just being natural, like you and I would be sitting across, sitting on the couch together chatting.
Which we did yesterday.
Which we did.
And we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of questions to ask and only a couple more minutes. Anything triggering your imposter complex right now? Are you on the precipice of anything new right now? Or maybe those are two separate questions. I think they are two separate questions, but treat them as such.
Yeah. So I am on something new. I'm for the first time in a long time creating a tangible product that I'm putting out into the world that I, again, have no idea. I want to launch it in November, and I actually have no idea how I'm going to make it. So I am in that challenge. And then the place where my imposter complex lives hard and strong, where it thrives, is still, I work with creatives. That's what I do. And so it's still in my visual art. It's still for me when I am going to share anything I've made with my hands, with paint, with drawing, I just get all up in the, wow, that is not good enough. Wow, Jamie, that's cute and childish, and so that's where my imposter complex still lives very strongly.
So it's in the, it's not in the, I've got a crazy idea, I'm going to create this piece. It's in the, hey, everybody, look at my piece.
For sure. Like, I think I've been doing, hey, I've got a crazy idea since I was 6. So it doesn't mean it's still scary. For me, that's the key, is it's always adventurous. It's always on that cutting edge of what's next for me. But I'm comfortable with that place. I like that place. It excites me. The art thing, it's a lot more sensitive. And that's why I work with people on it, because I know what that feels like. I know the bravery it takes. I know what it takes to find your own voice and trust that that's what you're meant to share.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. What is it that you tell somebody more often than not as it relates to starting something new?
Well, the first thing is I really acknowledge, and I think it's important to acknowledge, that it is hard, it is scary, it is brave. I think sometimes we can look, and that nobody else gets to decide what requires bravery. Do you know? So for me, maybe painting a little 3x3 square takes more bravery than calling up Gretchen Rubin. That may seem crazy, but that may be true. So somebody may look at what you're doing and say, well, you're just starting to write poetry. Like, what's the big deal? And you're like, and so you are the only person who gets to decide what is scary and what is not. And newness is always scary. And so that is the other great thing about this. It sucks that it's usually always scary, but the good thing about it is that's also normal. It doesn't mean you're not ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not for you. It doesn't mean you don't have what it takes. Actually, not true at all. You're being charged like that because it matters to you. You're being charged like that because you're being called. You're being charged like that because this is for you. So take good care of yourself, get good sleep. Like, don't underestimate the power of self-care in these moments. And then find your bravery, find your friends, the people that make you feel strong, and just do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to add one teensy little bit.
Please do.
And that is reminding yourself every time you have stood on the precipice of that new, right? You've been here before, you've been here before, you've been here before. And every time you recognize that the party was on the other side of that resistance.
Yes.
On the other side of that leap. Because you've done it before. It just hasn't looked exactly like this.
Oh my gosh. And how many things have you done do you do with ease now that once was a complete mystery to you?
But we don't take the time to acknowledge it. We don't take the time to celebrate it. That's why it's not locked and loaded.
Yes.
What I'm working on with the Academy right now, our whole month is about celebration. And oh my gosh, the resistance. Polly says, this is also fascinating. I've been going back and forth in my mind about either starting to blog again or starting a podcast. This is helping me realize what I need to look at for starting with.
Yay. Hey,
Polly. Kat says, wow, Jamie, that doesn't mean you're not ready. Thanks for that.
You're welcome, Kat.
Thank you. So I mentioned my academy. Tell us about your academy.
Yeah, so we have just opened up the new season at Jamie Ridler Studios. And if you head over to openthedoor.ca, you can see a little tab that says the Academy. And that's where all the classes for this season are, from the Journal Club, which is like the best group of friendly, loving people who journal together every Friday, or Planning Day, which is coming up. It's like one of my most popular offers, where we get in there and create our plan for next year. One that feels like supportive and good, but not like a straitjacket, because we creative people, we only like so much structure. We need structure, but only so much. Thank you.
Truth. Jamie, thank you for your time, your generosity, your wisdom, your light, your brilliance. I love spending time with you. We could do this absolutely all day. Thank you, Shannon, for popping openthedoor.ca in the chat. Thank you all for being here. Next week, I've got Jen Brown, who is a triathlon coach, and she is leading a movement called Sparta Chicks Movement out of Australia. She's actually going to be here in my office with me. We've never done a in-person live in the spotlight, but that'll be fun. So follow me on Crowdcast if you're not already, and you'll get notifications about that. Follow Jamie on Crowdcast. Please find her absolutely everywhere and just radiate in her luminous brilliance. Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you. Sincerely, thank you.
Thank you all.